Recording started.
Talk shoes.
Recorded live.
Good morning, good evening, wherever you may be across the nation or around the world. Once again, you are listening to the VMware Community's Roundtable podcast. This is podcast number 511. My name is Eric Nilsson, and with me today, I have my new regular co-host, Matt Langeth. Today is Wednesday, May 13th, 2020. We are doing the VMware Community Podcast on YouTube. So if you want to go over to YouTube, it is youtube.com/vBarbecue, VBARBECUE. Go over there. You can watch us live stream, see all the guests, see what they look like, as well as give us a like and a subscribe. We would appreciate that. On the show today, before we get to that, Matt, how you doing today?
Fine, healthy here in central Pennsylvania, a beautiful spring day. And yourself, Eric, how's things out in the valley?
I'm doing great. It's been beautiful weather. Can't complain about the weather. Been doing a lot of V gardening out in my backyard. I got the tomato plants growing, got a plum tree, got an apple tree going. I'm just a V gardener these days, so having a good time. On the show today, we are going to be talking about vSphere 7 and Horizon 7.12 with NVIDIA vGPUs in a high-end environment. We're fortunate to have Fabian Lenz, IT professional, blogger. He runs vlensker.net. He's at Lensker. I'm saying it wrong. Fabian, how do you say your first name? It's not Fabian.
Yeah, no, Fabian is pretty good. So Fabian Lenz, welcome from across the globe, I would say.
You are coming from Germany. Which town in Germany?
Exactly. So it's Munich. So we needed to reset the Oktoberfest to the next year, but yeah, we're still having some kind of a good time. At least we tried to. So greetings to all of you.
Very good, very good. So before we get to you and we talk about some high performance VDI, let's go through the news and just see if we can get through the news. So a couple things going on. First off, call for papers for VMworld. VMworld Online is going to be a global conference. It's going to be really, really nice. One big global conference because we can't have vForums in APJ. We can't have VMworld Europe. We can't have VMworld US as a physical event. So we're going to a global virtual event. And actually, it's turning out to be kind of interesting. We might have some really cool environments where you'll be able to meet people virtually. We are talking about a virtual chat where you could come in and just say, I want to meet somebody new globally because we're going to have a global experience. And I gotta say, Fabian, it's your real time here. The video quality is good. So I think that having a global environment where we can engage with everyone across the world should be a doable technology. So it should be kind of cool. The call for papers has been delayed till May 15th. I think that's this Friday. So if you want to do a session, we will have, 400 plus recorded sessions online for everyone to consume. Some of them will be real time. Some of them will just be recorded. So if you got an idea, get your papers in. We have track owners. You still have a few more days to get your paper in. So that should be good. Other thing that's happening today, vForum US Online is happening today and tomorrow. So you can go Google that. I know Pat did a keynote. I know they have live streams. So it's kind of precursor to how VMworld is going to play out. And I know the VMworld team is looking at the vForum team to see how they're running their show. So, hey, go check that out. A lot of good content there. And that's live today and tomorrow. Moving on, vExperts, Corey Romero. I know you're on the call, and I know you've been pretty busy as well. How's it going, and what have you been up to?
It's been very, very busy. It's all great stuff. I've been up to all kinds of stuff. So we're a lot of involvement in the vExpert program so far this year. So vExpert applications for the second half of the year open up, and they're going to open up on June 1st, and they're going to go through June 19th, and we're going to do an announcement on July 17th. So if you've been interested in the vExpert program, go check out vexpert.vmware.com to find out more information. I encourage you, if you're advocating VMware, our services, our products, go sign up for the vExpert program. We've got 8 sub-programs open this year. It's going to be a fantastic year for vExperts. Some of the things that we're doing in the vExpert program is this morning we sent out invites for 3 different sessions, exclusive vExpert sessions. One is VMC on AWS. The other was with our partner Veeam, and then another with our partner HighTrust. So those are all exclusive 1-hour sessions that we do with our partners as well as VMware into the vExpert program. Another really cool thing is what we're doing is I spoke with the vSphere PM, the vSphere team this morning, and we're working on a solid process to get vExperts who were interested in the vSphere beta program signed up directly into that beta program. So you'll have access to the beta bits, be able to provide feedback, run it in your home lab, everything else. So that's what I have for the week here.
Yeah, very good. So you've been busy, and I know that we invited all the vExperts to join Test Drive, and got a code for a year-long Test Drive membership for anybody that's a vExpert. So, and I know that we are going to be doing a vExpert gift this year in late September. Last year, we gave everybody Raspberry Pis that came to the event. This year, we're going to be doing something. Don't know what it is yet. And because it's virtual, probably everybody will sign up for their gift, because you don't have to come to VMworld to get your gift this year. You just have to be a vExpert and show up online. But we are going to be doing something cool. It'll be something that'll plug into the virtual environment. And so I know for VMware Code, we sent out, and this is not what we're going to be doing, but we sent out Domino's pizza cards, or pizza cards for your local area, so that you could, and we also gave you a code shirt, so you could go get a pizza, go get a drink, put on your code shirt, and join us in the virtual environment to have a lot of fun together, right? And so we will be doing something like that for the vExperts. And I know this year, I think we're at 1,800 vExperts, which is fantastic. We have a really good voting system with all the vExpert pros doing the voting. And we're helping people build out good apps all throughout the year, which is cool. We are looking to cross that 2,000 member threshold this year. I think we have 500 people signed up to follow the applications in the second half. So if we get a couple, maybe 170 new vExperts, we could cross the magic 2,000 mark on the vExpert program, which would be a great thing. So if you're doing social media evangelism or running vMugs or engaging, feel free to get in there and learn what else you can do to push across the edge and become a vExpert. That would be awesome.
And as always, if you have questions about the application process, reach out to your local vExpert pro. We'd be happy to help you through the application and help you better your application for this next opening round here that looks like it's going to kick off on June 1st.
Nice. And Corey, is there a list
if you don't know who that pro is?
Right. Go for it.
Sorry, Eric. If you don't know who that pro is, in the on vexpert.vmware.com, you can go to the directory, click the pro tab, and then you can find someone in your country to help you out with that application.
And if you're from Germany, just ask me.
There you go.
That's right. That's right. And that does get us through the news and through the events, so we can get on to the topic for today, which I got to give Matt some kudos here. I think he knows a lot about this topic, so it should be a fun interview. So Fabian, thanks for being here. We always start out with our community, because this is a community podcast, and I know you're a vExpert and you do run your own blog. Why don't you give us introduce yourself, tell us a little short history of who you are, where you live, where do you work, and what has been the arc of your career up to this point?
Yeah, thanks, Eric. So I come from Germany, as you might obviously hear by my accent. And yeah, I started to work with the enterprise products of VMware in 2011 by getting to know vSphere, ESXi, seeing vMotion in vMotion migrating workload from one physical host to another, and was kind of amazed. So I learned a lot about VMware products. I became certified, VMware certified professional. I started about the strategy of you learn most when you teach things. So I became VMware certified instructor and taught vSphere knowledge, Horizon knowledge to all the people out there. And yeah, from time to time, I was getting more and more information about things from the community, from people like Frank Denneman with his blog, Duncan Epping, and I saw, okay, there's so many people writing about stuff, and that helps me during my daily job. That helps me to improve things all of the time, and trying to get better at writing things down, putting complex things into simple explanations. I tried to combine my teaching experience with my lack of writing skills, and that's how I became a blogger. So suddenly I tried to write about things, write about errors I had in environments with customers. I tried to explain characteristics, and I became a vExpert 6 years ago, something like that. And I figured out how important the community was for my career so far, because now, I mean, I have a very good life, a good wife, I have the best life I can imagine. And thanks to my job, VMware still has so much great technology, very exciting, very in the center of every other technology, kind of. At least for me, the feeling is when I work with VMware every day, I learn something new. So I love the whole VMware portfolio, and I gained more experience. I joined ComDivision, which is now one of the partners in the world that has all 5 master service competency. I work together with experts to deliver the whole SDDC and Horizon stack into custom environments. And that was getting more and more complex, more and more bigger, solving more and more complex business issues. And from time to time, I know sometimes I could blog more, but I try to summarize findings, summarize opinions, and write them down in my blog. It helped me to write better things. To explain things better, to write better customer reports, better customer documentations, and I think that helped me a lot. So I really encourage a lot of people always to start a blog, even though you cannot write, just learn it. It's a training thing.
Yeah, I found that when I started teaching, and I teach some subjects, right? And when you have to teach things, it forces you to write things down. It forces you to learn them, and then you learn them very well. And it's kind of an exploratory process where by writing down and creating content, you're actually learning the details that sometimes you gloss over. So it is a good learning environment as well.
And you teach smart people normally. I mean, we typically don't teach people that have no idea about a thing. So you interact with people who are kind of experts because they do things daily, 24 hours, but 8 hours a day. So you learn from their mistakes, from their experience, and you get a very good big picture. And I try to show that to people who want to interact with me.
Yeah, that's very typical, and it's a great thing, and it makes our ecosystem strong, and it makes the job fun as well. So it's great. So thanks for that introduction. Good to experience that. So I know you've written several different articles. We do a shout out to your blog. It's vLenzker, VLENZKER.net. So is Lensker, is that just like a kind of hipster name for Lenz? Is that how you came up with that?
No, but I mean, my last name is Lenz. That's the first thing. So and Kerr is, to be honest, that was kind of my nickname when I played Counter-Strike, I don't know, 15 years ago. So I did those online gaming. It was now I combined the both worlds.
All right, cool. So that's a great way to remember it, and it's an excellent blog. So we're going to be obviously talking about vSphere 7, Horizon 7, and NVIDIA GPUs, an article you have there. But you have several other really great articles. I would encourage people to go to the blog and check them out because they are really solid articles. And we did really fall in love with your vSphere 7 article because not only do you just blog, but you also give diagrams. You give good architectural diagrams. Sometimes people just strip information from other blogs and just post, but your blog actually you spent time taking us through how this would work. So we'll talk about that. So how did you get involved with the topic vSphere 7 and Horizon 7.2 and NVIDIA GPUs? Why don't you give us some history of vGPUs and how you started working on this?
Yeah, so for years now we're involved with a large automotive customer here in Germany with VDI solution, which is based on VMware Horizon, utilizing vSAN, HPE servers. And that's something we do for years. But for, let's say, normal use cases, VDI use cases, you have Windows, you have your Office users probably some special users that need more virtual hardware, but very typical stuff, let's say it that way. And over time, within the automotive, there were some people who figured out, hey, wait a sec, that's a virtual desktop, and yeah, let's compare it to the engineering environment I have today. And if you talk with engineers working there, it's not very professionalized, let's say it that way. They have their own IT. Everyone has a fat workstation underneath their desk. They have Linux installed, very, let's say, kind of centrally managed, but not really centrally managed. So they utilize their workstation, which is high expensive, makes a lot of noise, doesn't fit to, let's say, modern workspace characteristics. And that's where we ended up in the whole idea of transferring this workstation world into a VDI solution, kind of.
So Fabian, to that, is this something that you and your particular employer or as a VCP came in and sold this particular solution, or is it something that particular manufacturer was able to identify and then you just helped them along the path?
I mean, it was kind of working in this atmosphere is a lot of politics and chat, kind of. So you meet people. We had the lucky time to you get out to people. You talk to other ones who work in a certain field. People that are responsible for the solution from an organization perspective just said, hey, can you talk with this guy? They have these problems in their mind. Can you just have a chat and talk about the solution you offer for regular VDI? And maybe there were some matches right here. We did that multiple times to just talk with people about the solution, what's possible. And from time to time, it totally hits a need, or it totally fits into a certain scenario. And that's when it's kind of selling it on its own, to be honest, because then it's just starting a pilot, starting a prototype, transferring it into production by architecturing the solution. So
for this particular customer, how long have they been using vGPUs?
I mean, the vGPU thing is kind of new for them now in the virtual desktop infrastructure. So they use virtual desktop infrastructures, but really for the typical use cases. And suddenly they have some swift in the strategy. New buildings are created with a flex office, where the goal is not to have any sensitive data and workstations underneath the desk of the end user. And that's the first thing. So people should just check in wherever they are and work from their laptop, iPad, whatever they have, and work in a certain environment. And there were some characteristics like shadow IT that started because people they had a Linux, they had root rights, they did whatever they wanted with it, and they figured out, hey, I got 4 terabytes of storage on my device, let's share it with the other department. And more critical data was getting out of the control of the IT. So there was a decision to figure out how to solve the problem. And VDI with vGPUs, obviously, because they're engineers, they work a lot in modeling applications, 3D applications, and that's where they ended up and said, hey, what you do for the office world, can't we do with something similar in the Linux world and in the vGPU world? And that's how it was started. And we had a good timing, to be honest, because it was kind of going to production in January, and now a lot of people need to work from home and can now work from home. That's kind of, the timing was on our side.
So it sounds like the business drivers were much prior to anything that we had with the epidemic, that there was security and change management issues that were in place that really drove this initially. And then
Absolutely.
All of the work from home optimizations that it offers carried across.
Yeah, to be honest, I think this work from home initiative now created more acceptance, because let's imagine 1 year earlier, such an epidemic crisis, people were not able to make progress in their products. And when we talk about the automotive industry, there are a lot of challenges here, self-driving capabilities. So there's a lot of high project pressure, and now suddenly people can work from home in their known environment, and that created at least the user acceptance in most cases. That's great.
what do you have to have on the client side to make this work? You talk about, you know, very thin clients. Does the whole architecture allow for that? And then my follow-up question is, what's the network bandwidth? And have we seen network bandwidth, you know, catch up to the point, and latency catch up to the point where you can actually make something like this work?
Yeah, I mean that's a good thing. Nowadays, when we talk about Horizon, and especially in the Linux world, we use the BLAST protocol for the remote graphics transmission, and that one utilizing H.264, H.265, which can be decoded by nearly every kind of, I don't know, smartphone device. Let's say all modern devices. For sure, for older laptops that were still in place, or notebooks, if high color accuracy H.265 is required, that it really depends on the use case. There are use cases where you still need to have some more potent or more high hardware characteristic on your client. But typically for the most 80% users, you can use whatever you want, a Raspberry Pi, whatever that can decode H.264, because that's where the BLAST protocol has been optimized for, or which technology it is using. So therefore, that's kind of easy here. The network and bandwidth characteristic is something for sure that changes for the user, because now they were used to work on a workstation physically underneath their desk. So it was direct responsiveness. In the first weeks of the crisis, where all companies were sent to people at home, and the internet provider had some gaps here as well, and also the automotive vendor, they had some, let's say their internet gateway was not sized in a way to this huge amount of peak data transfer. We had some let's say smaller disruptions in the quality, but that was handled within the first 1 or 2 weeks. And yeah, I don't know, with 20, 30 mbits per second mbits per second peak at a certain rotation of a diagram that's totally suitable in any kind of enterprise.
Right. So, okay, that makes sense. And I think it's kind of like work from home, where I was trying to convince our executives that just having Zoom, my team started to diversify, and I found it to be more effective working from Zoom, you know, with my team in different places, than actually having them in office. And so I would explain that to executives, and the executives are kind of like, yeah, we're not sure. We don't. They just had pushback, and it was not rational pushback. I actually had meetings where I argued with people, and I couldn't imagine when you're talking about vGPUs and, you know, moving away from something under my desk where my mouse and monitor is connected to it, and actually moving remote. You almost have to have that tipping point where somebody forces you to do it, to where I go, oh, this is actually working pretty well, and you get used to it, the bugs work out, and all of a sudden it's something that's adopted. And so I see that the epidemic forcing everybody to work from home actually is that tipping point that you can actually look at it and go, actually this meets my requirements. It actually does okay. In fact, the fact that I can just go into the kitchen and have my lunch and then come back instead of having to go out to a restaurant actually makes me more productive than I was originally. So I can see that tipping point where it forces you to attempt to use it, and then you realize it works. And then once you realize it works, you get all the advantages of having all of the stuff, you know, working without you having to keep your machine under your desk up and running.
Fabian, to that end, you know, for such a specific use case for this particular organization, as it would relate to the vGPUs, you mentioned anything with H.264, but obviously, you know, sometimes one of the troubleshooting spots is, you know, the quality as far as the responsiveness and, you know, screen frame rates and whatnot. Then you also had mentioned security. So was there anything that particular organization did as far as mandating what the end device needed to be? Is there anything, were they deploying the end device? Did they have, you know, carry more down as far as the Workspace ONE stack to deploy any type of profiles or anything like that? Or did they set like maybe a mandatory, you know, set of requirements that they wanted to have as far as the client device to make sure that their particular end users were receiving a certain, you know, experience?
Yeah, so for the end user's client device, there is not much of a let's say control mechanism. I think you need to sign certain things that need to be updated, antivirus install, but it's not a managed device. So the end device, it can be anything. And since they're doing VDI for multiple years, there are security concepts that need to be applied for the access, because in the end, I mean, VDI is nothing else than you have your virtual machine in the data center, you connect over an unsecure network to this virtual machine and transfer the graphics, the audio from your client location, which can be whatever, into the data center. So you need to fulfill certain security requirements, second factor or whatever. So you need to not just know your Active Directory account, but also your any kind of RSA token, do or whatever. Google Verify, not Google VMware Verify. And the other thing is, for sure, there are certain characteristics that need to be fulfilled once you come from the outer world, from an unsecure world. Certain things cannot be done, copy and paste, file transfer, whatever. So we utilize the UEM/dynamic environment manager nowadays to make those smart policies happen. If it detects you come from the outer world, you're not allowed to copy and paste. You're not allowed to make client drive redirection, USB redirection. So there are security principles in place. And at least for Linux, the dynamic environment manager allows for those smart policies, which helps us here.
To that end, let's dive a little bit, technically into what this particular deployment looks like. You had mentioned in some of your blog posts that there was tremendous, that this was persistent desktops, correct?
Yep.
With tremendous memory allocations. Can you expand upon that a little bit as far as what the business drive was there and what that particular desktop environment looks like for this?
Yeah. Absolutely. So I mean, it is kind of interesting because this use case is kind of new, and we had the product owner within the vendor. He comes from the engineering field, so he knows Linux, he knows his applications, he's kind of aware of virtualization, and he knows how to work in the engineering field. And it might be some days you just load some models, you work on those models, you do some calculations with it. You need to load the whole model into the memory, otherwise the simulation would crash afterwards. So you load something, you change something, it simulates things, and then it takes 12 hours, whatever. So that's the whole way they're working. And if you don't have enough memory in your virtual machine, it will just not load the model properly. And therefore, it is important to have a high throughput, not throughput, but that you have high memory amount within the virtual machines, and you need those persistent disks because, I mean, you load hundreds of gigabytes of models from a network share. I mean, how have they done it before? They were in their remote office somewhere, connected with maximum of 1 gigabit to the whole building, and that's where they loaded hundreds of gigabytes, and it took hours. And suddenly, I mean, the data was close to the file share, so we were able to fastly load the data. We were suddenly able to do stuff, do a snapshot with memory, with for sure stuns the VM for a certain amount of time, but do simulations, get back to the point where you did the snapshot, change a few parameters, and do it again. So it's kind of easy. And then every 2 weeks, I have a chat with this guy to just, let's say, figure out and brainstorm other ideas how we can improve things. We talk about BitFusion to offload GPU utilization to a central, central server farm that uses GPUs, and that's how we exchange a lot to figure out what we can improve. And one last thing, now the important thing is we figured out there's certain users, they will never exceed more than 96 gigabyte of memory because their models are always slow. They have a different workflow, what they do every day. So we track that. We realize operations, we have time frames where we resize the virtual machines to make the best, let's say, business, let's say, cost efficient virtual setup for the users, and that it's an ongoing process, and that makes it very interesting here.
So for those particular users and for your VROPS environment, are you just pausing those sessions, or how are you identifying those sessions that aren't in use and moving those resources out to actual sessions?
I mean, at the moment we're in the first phase where we identify the resource demand of the users. We identify the memory demand especially, and the GPU demand, because those are the cost drivers in the whole thing. So memory and GPU, and then we go back, and for memory we analyze the recommendation VROPS put out. We analyze what is the recommendation of VROPS. For GPU, we observe the last 3 months and check for the peak. And then at the moment, we still have something like a maintenance cycle where we shut down all the VMs, we apply the now best size profile, we boot them up again, and for the end user, they can then now work in a more cost-efficient environment. That's the whole idea here.
And just quickly, how long, or excuse me, what is the size? How many concurrent sessions are you managing in this environment?
At the moment, I think we license 800. It should be around, I think, 400 named, 400 concurrent users, something like that. And now, just today, the second cluster with the same. So we will be around 1,600 sessions. After next week is the testing phase. So probably next week, 1,600. And
that's all with virtual GPU? Or is that enterprise-wide?
50% vGPU, and 50% they use Ubuntu clients without a GPU at the moment. But at that point in time where they figure out, wait a sec, that's what we can do with vGPUs. They want to have it now. The good old I don't know, money discussion comes into play, because GPU isn't cheap. Yeah, and that's why we need to do the whole optimization here, because GPU involves a lot of investment, ongoing costs, and that's where we try to make the best cost efficiency benefits here. So looking at your blog, I noticed that you also used vRealize operations to find idle desktops and suspend them. That's part of that equation. So maybe we could talk a little bit about vRealize operations and how you're using that as part of the solution. Yeah, I mean, vRealize operations is included in, I think, Horizon. We have Enterprise anyway, so I don't care about which edition it's included. But we utilize it because it gives us suddenly insights into the environment. And within these companies, they're doing VDIs for years, and there's always one big problem is to don't have anything in your hand. If a user complains, you don't have historical data, correlation of data, and for sure, there are things that can be improved with VROPS, probably not on the VMware side, but because the product has become great. But the NVIDIA management pack, I think there's something coming that improves things here. And that gives us insight, that gives us data reports at the end where we say, okay, the performance was weak. It can be nailed down to anything in the infrastructure. Or the user's complaining all of the time, and I figure out, hey, wait a sec, you had 300 milliseconds latency and 30% packet loss. Yeah, we need to think about something else. Doing VeloCloud between your home office and the office, whatever. Right. But suddenly you have something to argument, and that's what I always love with VROPS. You can argument with facts, and that's something you typically cannot do most of the time. Yeah, especially when you're convincing users to move on to this architecture, right, where you're losing hardware. So having that data to be able to debug, right, is, I guess, important.
Fabian, out of those data sets that you've got or received out of the management pack with VROPS, what's been the most surprising metric? What's come back to you that you've looked at and said, wow, I just really didn't expect that from over 3 months or however long that you've had the deployment out there? What's something that's just really stood out for you that you weren't expecting to see now that you're getting all of these data points? I mean, we size the desktops based on, let's say, the, I don't know, IT department, but an IT department that's close to the engineering field. And I think from those 800 machines, 750 are oversized, and 9 were undersized. I was expecting something like that, but I was not expecting that nearly everything was wrong sized. Yeah, so that's the first thing that kind of surprised me. And in the end, especially in the Linux world, that there are a lot of users that
I mean, if you ask a user, what do you need for a virtual desktop? Today I got, I don't know, 4 GB frame buffer and 8 cores and 128 GB memory. I need exactly that. So, and suddenly you monitor the vGPU utilization, and some of them, they never really use vGPU. They could easily fit with 1 GB frame buffer, which could decrease the cost a lot. And that was something that kind of surprised me the most, especially since in the Windows world, you can never have enough frame buffer. In the Linux world, you can do very well, even if you have a small amount of frame buffer in place.
So along those lines, let's to your blog post specifically, where are we at currently with vGPUs? And when I say that, let's take the latest release that's publicly available that it's most being consumed. So let's say a mixture of 7.6 to 7.12, but still on the 6.7 vSphere environment. And what are the limitations with that? And what does the new release of VCF4 and then obviously vSphere 7 help to solve?
Yeah. So for most of the user, we have those persistent dedicated desktops. And one big challenge is that we have a huge cluster with a lot of resources. And the whole GPU or vGPU placement was not as we are used as VMware administrators, operators, because for us, virtual resources completely decoupled from the physics. We typically just say, hey, power on, DRS is doing all the fancy stuff, picking the best host where the workload fits, and starts the machine. In the vGPU world, you need to know that on a physical GPU, you can only place vGPUs with an identical frame buffer. So if I have a 1 GPU and I place 1 2 GB frame buffer vGPU on it, I cannot place a 4 GB vGPU frame buffer on the same GPU. So I need to do something with the placement. And there's nothing really built in that does help here on a cluster level. So it makes it very tough for such a scenario. We now have a virtual machine that could easily live with 1 GB frame buffer. We cannot just shut it down and power it on somewhere else, because we need to have a free GPU which can live with this 1 GB frame buffer. So that really made things complicated. We did a lot with scripts working around those things. So a lot of kind of unnecessary work, because every vSphere admin expects DRS to do that. And that's some nice new feature of vSphere 7 that now also works with Grid, the latest Grid version now, which was released last week, where DRS can at least do the initial placement of the vGPU based on the physical characteristic. So we're currently planning to do an upgrade to simplify the operations about those things.
I noticed on your blog you have a nice video from Niels Haggart, where he kind of takes you through assignable hardware. One, do you like adding those type of things to your blog? Two, was it useful to see that? How do these things end up on your blog?
Yeah, I mean, typically I typically don't try to copy things. I try to put my own ideas to it, and if someone explains it quite good, there's no need to try to write it again, except you probably want to learn things. So two philosophies right here. But Niels, most VMware guys know the books he has written with Frank Denman, Resource Deep Dive. I don't know, I read it 2 times, understood 40%. But they still have a very good way to explain things. They work in your technical marketing environment, and he did a great video and blog post about the topic of assignable hardware. So my goal was to say what kind of business problem that one solves, and refer to the best resource that's out there. And there was Niels' article about that. So
great.
Not much more.
So what is the, and that we're kind of getting to the bottom of the blog article here, right? Which I've taken people through. I would encourage people to go take a look at it. The customer is probably not done. You're never done. What are the type of things that you're looking at improving as you go forward?
You mean from a technical perspective or personally?
I guess either one, technical first, and personally, you want to make a lot more money. I get it. More problems to solve. I'm only kidding.
I think the money comes if you love something. That's the second goal, kind of. The thing is, I mean, to be honest, within the VMware world, I mean, VMware acquires a lot of companies. The whole now container story kind of makes me crazy. And you know, I do Horizon. I kind of live in the end user space, end user computing space, and just learning about Workspace ONE is, I don't know, it's huge. So it's not possible to be an expert in every field. And I want to be an expert. When I talk about something, I want to be an expert in this field. And I mean, that's a good thing. I have those, my colleagues at ComDivision where everyone is an expert in a certain field, and suddenly we can combine the knowledge and try to get better in other fields and to exchange things here. My personal goals, I don't know, the whole Kubernetes things is kind of cool, but I need to upgrade my home lab for
I was going to say,
this story.
I have a question that's not really relevant to what we're talking about, but I've been dying to ask people, like, you're pinned at home. How do you get lab time? Do you get to go into data centers and do anything, or is it pretty much you get to live with what's already hardwired and now you're just operating in software?
Yeah, so for me, I'm totally the software-defined guy. I hate it to be in the data center because it's loud. You cannot discuss. I typically break things, and I'm not the physical guy. I'm the software-defined. I'm doing VMware. That's my thing. I'm the software guy.
Sure. But are there people in operations then manning systems? Are they rewiring things? Like when you're doing these type of projects, I would assume that I'm struggling with how people are operating, you know, because you do need hardware somewhere.
Yeah. So to be honest, I mean, what we have, we kind of simplified well and have requirements for us. Every service commodity, but to be honest, you know that certain quality criteria are important, firmware, whatever. But I trust to the knowledge of the guys doing hardware, choosing the right hardware, cabling them properly. But there are a lot of experts, and sometimes it's subcontractors of, let's say, the automotive vendors that do the cabling. Sometimes other team members are more specialized in cabling. But yeah.
So you're not seeing this slow down in your environment then? Your projects can still move forward in the last quarter?
I'm pretty sure about that.
Yeah, you don't know. Yeah, right. Okay, Matt, you have a question.
So Fabian, to one of the things that you had brought up earlier with this is BitFusion, and that obviously VMware made an acquisition here within the last year or so, year and a half. How do you see that playing into this current vGPU solution, and where it might fit in? And have you done any type of demos with that, whether that be within a lab environment, or is this particular customer maybe doing any pilots with it?
Yeah, so at the moment we are in discussions with them explaining the concept, because I mean when we talked about the product owner of the whole project, he had this vision in mind. The vision is you have a huge resource pool, CPU, memory, GPU, storage, and I mean if the user needs something, it just gets it out of the resource pool, which kind of works, but it works in a way. I mean, we still talk about virtual hardware and not virtual software. So we need we cannot cheat physics. We need to shut down the VM. We need to change the hardware, power that on again. So there are some kind of limitations and flexibility right here. But when we talk about using GPU as a resource pool, you suddenly end up at the BitFusion story, where you have a bunch of servers that have a server component installed, and clients can just, if they want to calculate on the GPU, they can just send it to a server, let it calculate, and get the results back, kind of. Yeah, and that's the story of BitFusion, and it's very interesting for them, but not in the simulation world where we are currently, because BitFusion is for CUDA instructions only at the moment. Yeah, so as soon as we talk about CUDA, BitFusion gets interesting. That's unfortunately not the place. I talked to the guy, to the engineering product owner, and he just gave me a very detailed explanation why certain simulations cannot be parallelized on CUDA cores. And I was like, I don't know what you're talking. but still, they also use those high performance computing. They have TensorFlow, whatever in place. So we are at least discussing opportunities to maybe also utilize the GPU at night for those things. You know, the whole story, VDI a day.
Right. I was just going to ask it that. Right. Have they looked at anything for AI or machine learning or whatnot within this particular
So they're
place?
doing it. They have high, very expensive HPC classes, a long queue for jobs that need to be processed there, and we're at least talking about that and try to figure it out. The big thing is that at the moment the engineering guys, they don't want to lose their resources at night. So I'm excited about the next 6 months. VROPS will hopefully tell us if there is a certain slot where we can probably put some use cases out of the calculation, suspend the VM, and place other workload on it. So it's an ongoing process, but very interesting story.
I could only see it expanding. It's just, I think you would agree, another continuation of where we're going with HCI.
All right, I always take where, as we come up to the last 10 minutes of the show, I do have to do a shout out. You have other articles on your blogs, right? So Better Together, vSphere 7, and NSXT. So it looks like you're doing this Better Together series because you've got vSphere 7 with Horizon, with the vGPU. Now you've got Better Together with vSphere 7 and NSXT. So shout out to you there. People can go there. Are you considering other articles? What's going to inspire you to write some more throughout the rest of the second half of the year?
I haven't planned that far, to be honest. At the moment, I'm currently involved in a large service provider deployment as well with vCloud Director, which is now the Cloud Director. And I at least observed some minor things that are easy to fail during the deployment. So probably to get back to the technical roots and write some technical how to solve things articles. And yeah, I figured out that this Better Together series is kind of interesting because I mean, VMware products evolve over time, and sometimes it's really one thing that suddenly solves a problem in the other product, or yeah, the whole bridging thing is kind of important here. So not sure. To be honest, I wait for the next Cloud Director release that makes it better together with NSXT. That would be awesome. And for sure, the whole Horizon and probably AV networks would be. But you know, I already figured out there's so many technology involved. It's tough to learn all of the stuff and get hands-on experience and real life experience. But yeah, there's still stuff in my mind.
You clearly have a lab because you mentioned your own lab. Just take a second so people can understand how you got where you are. What does your lab look like?
At the moment, it's really at home. I have it's shuttle bare bones, very old, but still vSphere 7 is running. So 4 nodes, 128 gig of memory, which is nowadays definitely not enough. The good thing is within the com division, we have, I don't know, a data center that delivers, I don't know, training kits for 100 courses every week. So we have a lot of resources there. We have a lot of spare nodes that we can utilize for doing things, and that helps us a lot to figure things out right in the beginning of any kind of new product. So
right.
So home lab and the com division lab environment.
Yeah, that gets you covered. I think you've done VMworld papers in the past. Question is, are you planning on doing anything virtual this year?
So far, I mean, I have 2 days left. I was, to be honest, so unbelievably busy through the COVID crisis that kind of made some emergency VDI deployments, etc. That was kind of peaking. Well, I mean, it would be an interesting topic. Yeah. I should probably do that, and I got 2 days left.
I think you can take the NVIDIA story, article, you know, the vGPU article, and bundle that puppy up, and just grab some of it and submit it.
Yeah, sure, we'll do that.
If you knew anybody on a committee that would approve it, right? And boom, you're in.
Eric, are you on the committee?
No, not me. Maybe. maybe I run the committee. Maybe I run the group that runs the committee people. I don't know, possibly. But that sounds good. It sounds like you have a nice life. You have a nice environment. Is the comm division the guys that send out the candy too? Is that you guys?
Yeah, exactly. So I think that there's an exclusive circle of 100 friends of comm division that gets candy every year.
And I got an extra couple pounds on my belly because of that pack that ended up in the podcast studio. We would give them to everybody's guests, but it's a really good company. You have a nice company, and your CEO came on the podcast last year, and really a great guy as well. Yeah.
And Fabian, for those in the community that would want to follow along with you, what's your Twitter handle?
It's Lenz KER, so Lenz Care. Just follow me and drop me some direct message, or I'm always happy to interact with any kind of people.
Yeah, obviously you're here, and we just tweeted at you directly as well because we saw your blog article. I think it's on. We have a dynamic signal, which is our advocacy.vmware.com platform that vExperts are allowed to join, and we took a look at top performing articles on the platform.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and yours was I think like top 10 blog articles on dynamic signal with like 300 shares or something like that. I have a spreadsheet with all the content, and yours was up there. So that's how we went, ooh, this one's good. People are sharing it and liking it. So yeah.
I didn't know that because it was very stressful the last weeks. I never checked Google Analytics on that, but great to know that someone reads it.
Yeah. You were up there, and people were sharing it, right? So not only reading, but then promoting it on their channels. So that's the whole point of that platform, was that if it gets in there, people can promote it and share it with all their people. Now, doesn't mean that anybody's reading it. I find in the land of Twitter and these dynamic signal platforms, people like to share things, but it doesn't mean that actually anybody ever goes and reads your content.
But like, Matt read it, so he asked questions about it.
Yeah, that's right. And you definitely got a couple more page hits because both me and Matt and a couple other people have gone in and looked at it in order to have you on the show, which is great. Matt, any final thoughts before we wrap up for the show today? It's been really, really fun talking to you.
It has. I appreciate everyone on. Good to see everyone. I hope everyone stays safe. And until next Wednesday, we'll see everyone soon. And
yeah,
Eric,
next show, we're going to be talking. I think we're having somebody from education in to talk about what's changing in education. I know they have some online stuff that they've adjusted to this new experience as well. So we'll do that. And we'll before we say goodbye to Fabian, we'll do a little vBarbecue. So I know Tony Foster has been quietly saying on chat, talk shoe. So we'll see if he wants to jump in. Hey, Tony, how's it going?
It's going great. So the vBarbecue report for this week is I did grilled pork burgers. Not hamburgers, but pork burgers.
Nice.
Absolutely phenomenal.
The pork burgers.
With a nice,
we've been doing
send some over.
Yeah, exactly. We'll all come together and have a vBarbecue, a virtual barbecue online, because nobody can actually get in the same backyard together anymore. But that sounds good, Tony.
I'm down for that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're going to do that. That's what we're talking about for VMworld. We are going to do some kind of environments where maybe we send you a barbecue kit, and everybody gets a barbecue kit if you're a vExpert, and then everybody has to barbecue their favorite thing, and then we all come together and kind of share what we've eaten. We're going to do a handful of stuff like that to create community environments in a virtual environment where we're kind of quasi-virtual and not. So should be fun. That sounds good. I'm going to go tell my wife that we should grind up some pork and make some pork burgers. Barbecue them on the Barbie. That sounds good. All right. With that, we're at the top of the hour. So thank you very much, guys. Again, to our guest, Fabian Lenz, IT professional blogger, vLenzker, VLENZKER.net. Thanks for being here. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Eric and Matt.
All right. With that, we're done. See you again next week. Have a great week.